Everything that I'd been so excited about, all the plans that I had for the future, everything that I thought was, me sorted for life, it just evaporated just like that. And yeah, things got quickly dark and I hated myself. At the start of 2020, I thought that I had it all figured out. I just started a new work contract that I saw being the one that was going to give me enough money to get a deposit together to buy a house. I'd recently started seeing a girl that I was crazy about, and life was good. I was really excited about the future. But then COVID hit, and within a few days, this work contract plug got pulled, and I found myself, I was living in a house share 100 miles away from my new love, and I watched as my dreams of buying a house in the near future evaporate out on the window. Now, we're all in this together and I understand that, but it felt like a lot of rug that was pulled out from underneath me all at once. I didn't tell my girlfriend that I was struggling. As men, we're so often taught that we're meant to just stay strong, power through, show no emotion. And my girlfriend already had a lot on her plate. Her work didn't break at all during the whole of lockdown. And she had a young son who she was homeschooling and I had to look after at the same time. So I kept it to myself. I thought that was the best thing to do. If it was over in a few weeks, then we could just get back to normal. Wouldn't have to think about it. But as the months rolled on, all the uncertainty and the lack of progress really started to affect me. As men, we're also taught that our value is related to what we provide in the world. And being a 35-year-old man living in a house share, unemployed, feeling lonely, not being able to decide on the best course of action, I really lost touch with what I saw as what I was bringing to the table. My self-esteem began to plummet, and by this point I'd set a precedent of not telling my girlfriend what I was feeling, what was going on for me. And the slow, insidious creep of depression snuck up and grabbed hold of me without me even realising. At Christmas I made plans to go and spend it with my girlfriend, and I couldn't wait. For various reasons, I hadn't been able to spend Christmas with a partner in the previous 6 years, so I was super excited about it. But just a few days before, London went back into lockdown, and so I got stranded down here, wasn't able to go and see her, and I was super depressed about it. And I still wasn't able to talk to my girlfriend about what was going on. From my point of view, I felt that I'm meant to be her rock. I'm meant to be the strong one, kind of helping her through this horrendous time that we were all going through. And I felt horrendous that I was the one that needed her support. And the problem is, when we're not communicating these emotions that we're feeling and when we're suppressing them, they still have to go somewhere, and that's when they start coming out sideways. And that's when I got needy and I got passive aggressive. And so the way that I was trying to get her attention, but because I couldn't ask about it directly, I started acting out in other ways. And so our communication just became more and more strained because there was this block in between the way that we were talking to each other. And I could feel the frustration that was building up in her as well. And this continued throughout the rest of the year and into the new year. And it just became more and more tense and came to a head. And at that point, when it was so strained, I managed to pluck up the courage to just actually say to her, look, I'm really struggling at the moment. But by that point, it was too little too late. It's a long period of time of not being honest with your partner. It's going to build up resentment and anger and frustration. And so, she turned around and she said that she thought we were too different and wanted different things. And that crushed me. And it sent me into this massive downward spiral that went on for months. And because, from my point of view, I felt like I was doing the right thing as well. I didn't want to burden her. I was trying to be strong. But inadvertently, that lack of speaking up was creating a barrier to connection. How can you connect with your partner if you're not being honest? And at that point, the UK went back into lockdown for another 4 months. And so, before that, I was already depressed and lonely, but now I was depressed and lonely and ashamed of it as well. And I just had to sit there with my thoughts. Everything that I'd been so excited about, all the plans that I had for the future, everything that I thought was, me sorted for life, it just evaporated just like that. And things got quickly dark and I hated myself. Now, depression is widely still misunderstood in our culture. Most people see it as this moping, heavy sadness, but it's truly debilitating. It actually psychologically stops us from being able to properly interact with the world around us. My experience of depression now is that it's actually a signpost that we're not living in alignment with our values. But the tricky thing is that most of us don't even really understand what our true values are. And so that's why you can get people who seem to have everything. They have, the perfect life on paper, but they can still be chronically depressed. There are two drivers at the wheel in each of us, our head and our heart. And when we're not living fully in alignment, it can really feel like these two are pulling in different directions. In the West, we put a lot more emphasis on the power of our logical minds, and these are amazing to be able to make plans and chase our goals and take action. But if we do this without actually being in alignment with our heart in the first place, we can achieve success, but it's not founded on what is truly valuable to us. Our hearts have 40,000 neurons within them, the same cells that are in your brain, and they're able to think and feel and learn and behave and take action independently. It's not just a cliche that we say you should follow your heart. Your heart thinks and your heart has intention. It's the part of us that yearns for meaning and purpose and connection and wanting to be part of the flow of life, and it guides us towards our interests and it dictates what our values are. So many of us have lost the ability to actually sit there and be quiet and listen to what it has to say, or we've suppressed it and decided that we're going to follow what society tells us are the things that we're meant to want. Sitting there alone with my depression, I freaked the fuck out. My life was nowhere near where I wanted it to be, and to be honest, I didn't really understand what had just happened for me to get to that point. So I just started frantically looking for anything that I could find that would help me try and drop this boulder that I was carrying around in my back. I spoke to therapists and analysts. I read every book that I could find on anything related to any subject that I perceived as a weakness in myself and in my insecurities. I started working with a coach. I took psychedelics. Spent a lot of time in any workshop that I could find, and as I said, I addressed anything that I saw as a fear and as an insecurity in myself. And slowly but surely, over the past 18 months or so, I started to piece together and understand a bit more about myself, a bit more about the things that were triggering me, and where I felt like I still needed to grow as a person. And slowly started coming back to a realization of actually what my values were, what I stood for, what I wanted for my life, and how I was prepared to live, and how I was prepared to accept other people into my life. The incredible thing is, none of us actually see the world in quite the same way. All of us, our subjective experience of the world is coloured by all of our history, all of our memories, our environments, our family, any traumas that we've experienced. All of these things dictate what our minds focus on, and then therefore what we experience out in the world. Yet we all walk around believing that our subjective reality is an objective truth, and it's simply not. All we're seeing is this narrow window of perception that's defined by our experiences. And once you start really understanding that, that's when things can start to change. Because without an objective reality to attach to, suddenly we're free to choose more helpful perspectives in any experience, any situation that we're in. Even my perspective of this situation, of what happened through COVID, that's just my subconscious mind, or maybe more conscious now, mind trying to make sense of it and trying to find a helpful perspective that enables me to learn from it and to grow and to move forward. But there's an unlimited number of other perspectives that we can take on any situation. And as a practice, starting to be able to sit there and look for these perspectives that are more useful, that just enables us to function better in the world. We can actually choose the life that we want to live by changing our perspective, by defining our values, and then by upholding them religiously. Looking back now, there are a couple of key learnings that I really wish that I could share with my former self, but I'm pleased that I can share them with you. And the first one is that it's not a bad thing for men to be emotional. And many men are terrified of sharing negative emotion with their partners because they're worried about being seen as weak and getting rejected. And what I've come to realize is that it's not actually the emotion that gets you rejected, but if you're not able to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, if you're hiding it and you're suppressing it, then that is creating this disconnect of like this lack of connection with your partner. If you're not able to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, how can your partner expect you to sit there and honor her feelings and create a safe space for her to express what she's feeling? Now, this doesn't give us permission just to be emotional, open the floodgates and be emotional all the time. A Spartan warrior at the end of a battle would wail in grief for his fallen brothers, but he was still a warrior, and it's our responsibility to make ourselves as strong as possible and to not make other people responsible for our emotions. It takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to identify what we're feeling in the first place, but also to make a plan of action of how to deal with it. So back at the start of COVID, if I'd have turned around to my girlfriend and said, babe, I'm actually really depressed at the moment. I'm feeling lonely. I'm not quite sure what action to take. There's so much uncertainty, but I found a support group. I'm talking to some people. I just wanted you to know what was going on for me. And if I seem a bit distant, then this is why. You can already see what a difference that would have been in the way that we communicate as a couple. But the real strength here, and this brings me on to the second thing I learned, is that by spending the time to get really in tune with our values, what we stand for, and aiming to be true to them at all times, we can get to a place where we know that we'll be fine no matter what life throws at us. If you define your values and you're brave enough to stand by them at all times, then you will get the life that you want. As men, we're led to believe that our value is in the material things that we bring to the table, but actually it's not. It's actually inherent in who we are, in the way that we see the world, and it is in our values. If we have a functional perspective of the way the world works and we know what we stand for, that's going to mean that we're able to create the things that are important to us in our life, that are in alignment with our heart. Material things, house, cars, money, they're all easy ways for people to identify someone who has the ability to create, who has a functional frame of the world. The world works the way that he expects it to, which allows him to create things. But if that person is creating and is not in alignment with what's meaningful and valuable in his heart, then it's never going to feel fulfilling. And so that's why so many people have what appears to be success, climbs the corporate ladder, has the fancy car, the nice house, but is unfulfilled. That's when you have depression and midlife crises coming into play. Conversely, we can have a great perspective and be in tune with our values and have no interest in material gain. A great example of this maybe is an artist who creates the world as he feels it. He expresses himself. He shares his values. He could have no interest in material gain, doesn't care about a fancy car or money. But yet people are drawn to him because of his perspective, the way that he sees the world. So the most important thing here that I hope you'll take away from this video is the importance of finding out exactly what our values are and being able to tune into them and show up and live by them every day. There's an exercise that I do with all of my coaching clients that I suggest that you give a go to as well. I ask them to make a list of 5 people that they look up to, and these could be people in real life, they could be celebrities, they could be fictional characters if you want, it doesn't really matter. And I would like you to sit down and spend some time making a list of what traits these people have that you would aspire towards. Once you spend a bit of time thinking about them and what you like about these people, then you'll soon have quite a comprehensive list of the kind of characteristics that would make up the ideal version of yourself. If you were fully realised, if you became the man or woman that you want to be, what would that look like? And one thing I like to do once I have a clear list of that, every day I like to sit down and visualise in the morning, imagining situations in my life, things that might have already happened or things that I know that I'm going to have to do. And I imagine what that might look like if I'm showing up as the best version of myself. If I'm acting in that place of authenticity, from the values, from the things that are important to me, how would I behave in those situations? And this takes time and it's going to take practice, but the more you show up and the more you drill this and the more you imagine it in your head, the more you will move closer and closer to that being your actual reality. I hope this video can provide a little help if you've been battling with your own demons. None of us would choose to descend into depression, but I really believe that it can be the catalyst to make the change and to reorient your life and start working towards the best version of yourself and the person that you really want to be. We are comfort-seeking creatures and we walk the path of least resistance, and we don't make a change until it's absolutely necessary. But if you're depressed, your body is screaming out to you to make a change, and I wish you all the courage to take whatever steps necessary to bring yourself back into alignment and figure out what you truly value, what you stand for, what you want in your life. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, or if you have any tips or suggestions of things that helped you on your own journey, then please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you soon.